Yes. Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here with you, Nizam.
Yes, and thanks a lot, Rob, to give me this opportunity to interview you. And friends, here is Rob Nelson for us. And let me tell more about Rob. Um, here, a little background about Rob. Like his has a master's in counseling psychology from the University of Oregon in 1983. And Rob, I was born in 82. So you can see.
I know it's
Yeah.
like so
So,
long ago.
yes. And Rob is into multiple things. Then, he got certified as a massage therapist. And then he explored EFT. He got trained with Gary Craig directly. That was amazing. And also, he explored different modalities, which we'll be knowing more about Rob's journey directly from him. He's the founder of Tapping the Matrix Academy. He's the author of the book, popular book, I can say, like Hacking the Reality. And there is the training programs also, a series of programs developed for hacking reality practitioners courses with different levels. He has a vast experience, friends. So let us know more about Rob from Rob's words. So, Rob, how did you get into this weird thing called EFT?
Um, my wife um, encountered EFT first, and I didn't know that. I'd never heard of it, but she had such a striking personality change
Okay.
for the better. Um, she used to get very upset when our children would fight, which I have two girls, they would fight a lot. So I noticed the kids were fighting and she didn't seem upset at all. She seemed perfectly fine. And just that was such a uh, extreme change. I finally
That
had to ask
that
her.
too, a psychotherapist is observing this. What's happening? Yes.
Yeah. So I asked her, and she said, "Oh, I downloaded the free 80-page manual off the web, and it's this weird tapping thing." Well, I'd never heard of it, and the idea that someone was giving away their healing modality for free really struck me as amazing. So I downloaded it and I started tapping, and immediately I was having changes that I didn't know were possible. I never dreamed were possible. And so I kept tapping for quite a while. Gary has something he calls the personal peace procedure, where you write down a list of all your bad memories and just work through them with tapping. So I was doing that, and one day I suddenly got this message from somebody saying, "Hey, you should be doing this with clients." And I had, you know, basically thrown away my whole counseling psychology career. I just didn't like the results from talk therapy. Um, there's wonderful things that talk therapy can do. I'm not trying to dismiss it at all. There's very powerful healing that can happen. But when it comes to trauma, it doesn't work so well. So I got this very clear message, you know, you should be doing this with clients. And so I sought out training. I took the training that was available at that time and began studying Gary's DVDs. He has a huge set, he used to, I don't know if they're still available, set of DVDs. And what is it, 12 years ago, I opened up shop and started seeing clients. So I think it's 12. Uh, I get confused about time. And it's coming up on 13 years, actually, 13 years in March. So um, at one point, soon, a year or two after I started, Gary announced his retirement, and he turned his whole website and mailing list over to a fellow named Dawson Church, who's actually, well, he used to be local to me. here in Santa Rosa. In fact, Gary, weirdly enough, just lives a few hours from here up the coast,
Oh, wow.
up the California coast. So by then I'd begun teaching EFT, and I got invited to be one of the trainers for an organization called EFT Universe. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And one of the other trainers from Australia, she just learned matrix reimprinting.
Okay.
I wanted none of it. I wasn't interested. I was just saying, Mr. EFT, don't bug me with this stuff. But it got through to me, and I read the book and got so excited. I signed up for a training and became a certified practitioner. And then it became harder and harder to teach EFT without wanting to talk about Matrix. So I finally called up the founder of Matrix, Carl Dawson, and said, hey, make me a trainer. And he said, okay, just jump through these hoops of fire. And I happily did. And that was about 8 years ago. So I was one of the 3 Matrix trainers in the United States. Actually, we used to have 2 in Canada, but they both retired. And so really there was just 3 of us for North America. And I've trained at least a few hundred practitioners in Matrix. It's a fantastic tool.
Amazing.
But then just to sort of cap this off, in May of this year, we here in California have had this lockdown, no public gatherings of any kind. And that had forced me to teach. If I was going to teach EFT, I had to teach it online. And I have 4 trainers under me who also teach, and they all started teaching online. But Carl Dawson, the founder of Matrix, was just absolutely against this. And I had already had serious divergence in how I was doing Matrix with how he wanted me to teach it. So I finally just resigned and began teaching my own version of Matrix, which I'm calling Hacking Reality after my book.
Okay. So could you please tell more about the Hacking Reality book and what is this modality? How did it emerge, Rob?
Sure. Way back before you were born, when I was in college.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
When I was in college and graduate school, I studied quantum physics. Not seriously, I would never be a good physicist, but I was very interested in quantum physics and how it related also with spirituality. And there's kind of an amazing connection there. And so, I'd been doing my work with, I'd done thousands of sessions, and I was seeing what I would call miracles on a fairly routine basis. And by miracles, I don't mean like an intercession from a divine source, but changes that don't seem possible. Even physical changes that shouldn't happen. So I went back to try and find an explanation. How can somebody's rotator cuff injury just be gone in 10 minutes? When they're about to get surgery, they've seen the x-rays, it's just gone and it doesn't come back. So that sort of thing got me back into quantum physics, trying to understand how is this possible? And also elements of Matrix are a bit like time travel. We go back into a traumatic memory and tap on the younger self there. So how does that work? So I got back into the quantum physics and started getting some things, I thought. So a part of the book is to explain how these things happen, and changing our default settings for how we see reality. Things like separation. We're just an isolated, skin encapsulated ego, cut off from everybody and everything else. Time is linear, which it certainly seems to be, you know, all those kinds of things. Going back and examining those default settings for reality. And so the book also goes into psychology and spirituality that I've found relevant for the work I do with people. So the first third of the book is that we look at Bruce Lipton's epigenetics. We look at a fellow named Rupert Sheldrake, his idea of the morphic field, how that works. And then the middle part of the book is more about how to do EFT, how to use it, how you can leverage some of the concepts from matrix reimprinting. And then the third part of the book is applying this to common problems like relationship, drama, health issues like cancer, procrastination, problems with prosperity or wealth, things like that. And yeah, I think I just gave you a very long answer.
Yeah, that's awesome because I'm a book lover, Rob. I read a lot of books. So what I found was, well, I was going through Hacking Reality reviews. So my honest thing, I haven't read the book yet, but when I read certain books of the founders of any modality, it will be written in such a way that it provokes you to, if you want to know more, come for the training, but when I was going through the reviews and all that, hey, the person who reads this book can apply the process as well. That caught up my attention. So revealing the process, like where a person is able to at least apply certain practices of hacking the reality on themselves by reading the book. That was amazing. So nice of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing work.
Yes. And next question is, Rob, how is matrix reimprinting and hacking reality? Like, how is hacking reality different from matrix reimprinting, to be precise? That's my question.
Sure. Well, first, some people listening may not be very familiar with matrix, so let me explain a little bit, just in a nutshell, how that works. You know, with EFT tapping, we're able to hack into the limbic brain and discharge all this trapped distress. Matrix reimprinting uses EFT, but if say you were my client and we were working on a memory when you were, say, 5 years old,
Okay.
I would have you imagine stepping into that memory as you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be two of you there. There'd be your adult self and the little 5-year-old boy. I'd have you do some tapping with him. The idea being that he actually got split off in that moment of trauma. He's been reliving it ever since, no matter how old you are, how long ago it was. He's just been on an endless tape loop. So the tapping with him breaks that. It frees your younger self. The distress is gone. But there's a whole extra element that is very profound. It turns out that little 5-year-old, just to use a hypothetical example, when whatever bad thing happened to him, he made a decision just automatically. Like, why is this happening to me? And the decision is usually either something about ourself or something about how the world is. So he might decide, oh, this is happening because I'm a bad boy, or I'm unlovable, or I'm stupid, or I can't do anything right.
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy. Or he might decide something about the world, like, oh, the world's a dangerous place.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, you can't trust anyone. or everyone you love will leave you. Things along those lines. Now, that decision then, because of the nature of the way trauma is stored in our brain, it becomes a belief. It becomes a set of perceptual filters that we're looking through. And from that moment on, we start seeing the world in a different way, which leads us to misinterpret things. If I think the bad thing happened because if I've decided that I'm unlovable and something else bad happens, it's just very easy to now to interpret it. Well, obviously that happened because I'm unlovable. And so it builds and builds until these beliefs, we don't question them. We may not be aware that we're believing them, but can you see how that absolutely affects the way we live our life? So what we're doing with matrix reimprinting is we go in there, once we've tapped on the younger self, got them out of distress, we just ask them, hey, how would you like this picture to change? What would you like to have happen? And say that they got a bad score on an exam and the teacher humiliated them in front of the class and they decided they're dumb. Well, maybe they would like to do well on the exam and even get some kind of honor. You know, their name's up on the board as like the best student. So we can, if we can arrange that in a way that's believable, we now have a new picture, and we go through a re-imprinting process to bring it into the brain, ground it into the body, bring it into our heart, and the heart's our transmitter back into the field. So now it's very interesting when the person, if we're successful, you, if this was you as your adult self, when you look back at that event, you automatically see the new picture. You see yourself being honored, feeling smart. And so this begins to change your belief about yourself. Sometimes it absolutely just reverses that negative belief. Sometimes it takes more than one memory to do the job. Now, it's different than denying that the original thing happened. Mm-hmm. You still know that you bombed the test or whatever. We're not brainwashing somebody, but automatically you see the new picture and it feels wonderful. With EFT, we're discharging emotional distress to get to a neutral place. But with Matrix, we're actually getting into a very positive new feeling. And so there's the wonderful new feeling and the new belief, and this can have absolutely profound life-changing effects. So that's matrix reimprinting. And at a certain point, Carl seemed to change the technique a bit. Now, I never trained with Carl initially. I trained with mostly with a woman named Sasha Allenby, who wrote the first book. And she may have had her own approach for all I know, but at some point she left, excuse me, and Carl started putting out several changes that I really wasn't okay with. Hang on a second. Now, Carl Dawson is one of the most brilliant men I've ever met. And I did get to train with him directly, but the changes he made, well, one of them is he would just leave, you're my client. Like normally with tapping on your younger self, I would guide you through that process. Now, you're an EFT practitioner, you could do it by yourself, but most of my clients aren't EFT practitioners. They've never tapped much before unless it's with me. So Carl would say, yeah, go ahead and do some tapping with your younger self. And like that doesn't work for my clients. I do have lots of clients who are EFT practitioners or even matrix practitioners, and they still want me to leave the tapping. So it's like, okay, that was weird. But then a more, I guess I'd have to say a more important change was Carl did change the technique to where we weren't supposed to change the outcome, create a new picture in really severe traumas, sexual abuse, violent assault, horrific. And that's actually a huge part of my private practice.
Yes, I have seen your profile where you specialize in trauma. Yeah.
Just sexual trauma alone is probably at least a quarter of what I do. And his changes um, made no sense to me at all. They seemed, I couldn't do my work that way. So now I was in a dilemma. He wants me to teach this. It's not the way I would ever practice. So that became more and more difficult ethically. And after about a year, I was ready to depart. And then his ban on online trainings. So since I did make the split back in May of this year, it's freed me up to add a whole bunch of new stuff too. I get to add whatever the heck I want, and I brought in more spiritual things, more quantum physics stuff, and yeah, it's been very enjoyable. Also, new topics like dealing with narcissistic abuse. I have certain things I do pretty regularly with clients because they have these issues dealing with guilt and shame, guilt and regret. There's a bunch of new stuff anyway. So that's the primary difference, though, with Hacking Reality. The practitioners in the role of guiding the client through the tapping, and when it comes to the what some people call a big T trauma, that guidance is even more important to help keep the client safe, but we're definitely many times changing the outcome. So yeah, just to give you a quick example of that, say that someone was raped and decided that they're powerless, they're helpless. To reverse that negative belief, the new picture might be them beating up the perpetrator, the attacker, fighting back and winning. With Carl's new approach, that was off limits. You couldn't do that. So yeah. And again, we don't deny that the original thing happened. We're just creating a new alternate reality for the client. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. Like I can resonate with this, Rob. I read Neville Goddard's teachings. He also talks about revision technique. He says like past can be changed. So it's all about in the memory. But still I'm curious, like hacking the reality. So what do you mean by that? Thanks for explaining with the traumatic event, because where a person is trying to choose an alternative probability or reality. So hacking the reality. So what do you mean by this?
Great question. Well, first of all, in quantum physics, there's no basis for a linear reality, past, present, and future. There's only the now. And it certainly seems real. But if you think about if you've ever gone to a movie theater and watched a movie, well, if you ever actually go back in the projection room and look, the movie comes in big flat cans, and it's at least it used to, and it's all still frame photographs, just hundreds of thousands of them. They're running it through the projector. It creates the illusion that something's happening past, present, and future. So what I realized was, oh, if the physicists are right, and they are, what are the still frames for the movie of our life? And it's like, oh, they're moments. So the implication is that every moment of your life is already recorded and exists simultaneously, which makes it very easy for us to go back into the traumatic memories and edit them. So the hacking is about, hacking comes from it's a computer term where software guys or gals can get into the operating system of a computer, for instance, in ways that maybe you and I can't. They're knowledgeable. They find sometimes sneaky trick openings to get in there and then make clever changes to, it could be for bad reasons or good reasons, but there's sort of an element of cleverness, often playfulness to it, but you're getting almost like unauthorized access to make huge changes to the operating system. That's hacking. So for us, our operating system is our collection of beliefs, what we know about reality. And there's a lot of inputs for that. A lot of it is great. Your parents taught you all kinds of very useful things. But those traumatic memories, usually the decisions we make are very counterproductive. They're dysfunctional, usually, especially the traumas when we're kids. We make all kinds of dumb decisions, like I'm unworthy. So the hacking is actually going into those memories, editing them, and let me tell you a story of how this actually became crystal clear and real for me. I had worked with a client who was maybe in her mid 50s, and we did matrix stream printing. This was some years ago on some memory involving her and her two brothers. Something bad happened to them. I don't remember even what it was, but we came up with a beautiful new picture that was very different than the original trauma. And it seemed like a good one. It was very successful. And then she contacted me a few weeks later. She had gone to a family reunion, and there were her two brothers. She hadn't seen them for a long time. And she walked up to them, and they were talking about the event that she and I had worked on. And she hadn't told them she'd worked on that event, but she suddenly realized they were describing the new picture. They were describing the change that we had made. Their memories had changed because of the hacking we had done. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, this is even more profound than I had thought before. We're getting into a level of reality that is above and beyond our individual experience. Yeah, hacking reality. That's the reality part.
Yes, thank you. And you are offering these courses online, and what's the difference face to face and online? How is it going on, Rob?
Well, I have to tell you, I do miss all being together in a room. I miss it very much. We would always go out to lunch together, and I get to know people a little more. There is something energetically about sharing space. But other than that, I don't think there's really much difference. I actually do my work with people all over the world, and almost all of my sessions are on Zoom.
Okay.
It used to be back in the battle days, Skype,
Yeah.
which was a lot more unreliable. Zoom has been great, but so it used to be I'd do about 70% of my sessions on Zoom. Now it's 99%.
Yeah. Like it's like you can just zoom away.
Yeah. So teaching, it's really not that different. In my conference room, or if I'm teaching in a hotel conference room, I project my PowerPoint slides up on a big screen, and people ask questions, and then we practice. I do demonstrations, uh, and we practice, and same thing on Zoom. The big difference there is there's breakout rooms, and um, instead of people just going off in the corner,
Yes.
it's less noisy um, and more private.
Yes.
But it's actually, I usually have teaching assistants, so sometimes I have enough for each room, so somebody has somebody with them the whole time. If I have a bigger class, we're popping in and out just to answer questions. Honestly, it's not that different in any meaningful way.
Yes.
Um,
Got it.
yeah, but it's kind of wonderful that people can attend from all over without having to travel. I used to have people. Santa Rosa has a very small airport. It's about an hour and a half drive from the San Francisco airport. It's not that easy for my students to come here. They did though, mostly from the United States or Canada. But now I've had people from all over. Although the time zone thing can be pretty intense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And Rob, how many levels are there in this hacking reality? Like, what needs to be like a person wants to be a practitioner? So, what is? Could you please tell more about these online trainings of the hacking reality?
sure. Uh, to qualify to take the training, someone must have taken EFT level 1 and level 2, and those need to be actual live trainings with a trainer, not just some recorded course or whatever. So because without having a strong EFT background, the hacking reality just doesn't, you can't do it. So when I split from matrix reimprinting, initially I did 2 levels, but the one that's coming up in a week or so, I've actually gone to 3 levels of training. And I think it'll be much better for my students. There was just always with Matrix, there's too much crammed into the workshops. So I have to admit, I have added some new curriculum, but mostly there's more time to practice and for demonstrations. The first workshop hopefully will give people a very strong grounding in how to do the technique. The second workshop, and each workshop's 2 days, is about addressing certain common problems like um, birth trauma or in utero trauma, um, past life trauma. We do a section on working with the future self, which is really nice because it's not a trauma thing. It's the most delightful part of it. Um, Working with traumatic death. Um, Gosh, I'm blanking out on a lot of things. But the second workshop is mostly about these common life issues. Oh, well, the most important one, in a sense, is I have a very strong section on dealing with abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental and emotional abuse. Um, this is the stuff a lot of my students are very uncomfortable dealing with coming in. Um, it's awful stuff to look at, to face, and like it used to make me feel sick to my stomach, especially the sexual abuse stuff. But when done properly, we can help somebody get through a really horrific trauma just in one session.
Wow.
And so the feeling there is so wonderful to pull that off for somebody. It overrides the horror of facing it. But I realized I needed to help my practitioners really feel confident in helping anyone with just about anything. So yeah, that's a very strong part of the level 2. And then the level 3 deals with certain things like the narcissistic abuse. Gosh, there's a whole bunch of good stuff in there, and I'm blanking out on what it is at the moment.
Yes, got it. So that was amazing sharing from you, Rob. Thanks a lot for your timing. I really enjoyed this hacking reality because I pretty much resonate with and yes, to why not explore the different possibilities and capabilities of human potential. So that was awesome, and glad that now this modality is available online as well. So friends, whoever wants to know more about Rob's work and the upcoming workshops, which is on October 10th, right? Hacking Reality, the level 1, right, Rob? So tapping the matrix, friends. I repeat, tappingthematrix.com. So that's the website of Rob.
Actually, let me throw this in. I have a workshop, or I have a website specifically for learning the techniques, which is hacking. It's tappingthematrixacademy.com,
Tapping the Matrix.
and that will get you to all the trainings. I expect to teach hacking reality again next year, 2021. It's things are so chaotic right now here in the United States, but I'm guessing it'll be either March or April next year.
That's awesome. Thank you for your time, Rob, and it was wonderful talking to you.
It's so good to meet you, Nizam, and thanks for staying up so late.
No. Yes. Bye, Rob. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.